Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Future Construct podcast. I am your host, Amy Peck. And today we are talking to Ryan McMahon, who is the General Manager, Manufacturing Informed Design at Autodesk. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you for having me.
So before we dive into your day-to-day at Autodesk, how did you get into this business? And, was it a childhood dream? Is it family? How did you get started?
Interesting. Growing up wanted to be an engineer. And so I spent my youth trying to figure out how I could do that. When I went to university, I actually studied analog integrated circuit design. So I was going to design the next great guitar amplifier. That was my objective.
Wow.
And so when I graduated, or when I was in school, I wound up working with this group of people at the University of Washington, and they're making this crazy electric toothbrush thing. And so I helped them build some prototypes, and that was pretty fun. And I went back to university and was graduating. I called them and asked them for a letter of recommendation. They're like, "Well, aren't you going to apply here?" And I'm like, "I didn't know you were a company, and I didn't know you were hiring, but so yeah, I'll apply." And what that company is it wound up being the Sonicare electric toothbrush. So I'm actually employee number 2. I built the first prototypes. I worked on the clinical trials. I engineered the first commercial offerings. I built the first 200 myself. And then I scaled manufacturing to about 60,000 units a month while I was there. And yeah, it's kind of weird.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I got a couple of patents. It beeps every 30 seconds, thanks to me.
I just got a new one because I travel with my old one, and I got like the latest. I mean, silly amount of money, but I was like, "This is my teeth. It's worth it." It's magical, Ryan. So thank you. I'm not even. That is the word that I use. It is magical.
It's cool. It's really
amazing.
Very cool. And yet, the thing that the product is cool. The thing that was really interesting for me is like, wait a minute, we're building a product from nothing, and we're building a company from nothing. This is kind of cool. I didn't know this was a career option for me. And this kind of, sparked this entrepreneurial interest. It's like, wait a minute, I want to run my own company. Like, I want to be the CEO. I want to make this happen. And so I decided that that's what I'm going to kind of figure out how to do. And so I needed to add a bunch of different skills to my toolbox to figure out how to do that. And so, after 5 years, I left that organization. I went to work for one of our suppliers as an electrical engineer. I sold electronic components. So I sold memory and DSPs and, all kinds of things to, a bunch of different high-tech companies. So I learned the practice of sales and sales management, all those kinds of things, and wonderful experience. One of the things I learned is that I hate doing sales. It's important, but it's not really my passion. From there, I went to grad school. I studied entrepreneurship. I got my master's of business focused on entrepreneurship and marketing. When I graduated, I did a bunch of different startups here in the Portland, Oregon area. So I did an electronic design automation startup. I joined them quite early. I did a digital music startup. We basically built iTunes 3 years before iTunes existed. So legal music downloads and catalogs. Let's see, I did medical devices. I founded a company that was doing sensitive information sharing for first responders. That was after 9/11. I did IT compliance, high performance computing, mobile gaming, and that was enough startups for me. My kids got old enough that's like, I think I need a little more stability. Which led me to Autodesk. So what was really interesting is, it's this weird full circle. At Sonicare, we were using AutoCAD 8 to design this product. And then I wind up at Autodesk. I wind up working in a group that's building tools for manufacturing, that's building tools for factory design. It was this crazy closed loop circle there. And so I did the manufacturing part of the world for about 8 years here at Autodesk, and I got introduced to the Industrialized Construction group at Autodesk. And learning about the industry and what they're working towards and what are some of the challenges, like, well, wait a minute, it seems pretty obvious here that you can borrow from manufacturing and get a lot of benefit in the construction world. If we can, the bar isn't very high there. There's a bunch of stuff that we can do to improve productivity, to scale our processes, to get to, lower waste. So yeah, I'm bought in. I want to contribute to that. So I started working with that group. A couple of years later, an opportunity opened up for me to join the group. So I leapt at it and jumped right in and started working on new solutions for industrialized construction. And about a year ago, our company decided to fund a larger effort to make some more investment in industrialized construction, and to I think my team grew by almost 50%. All in, we're about 24 people working on new capabilities. So that's kind of how I got where I am in the role that I am.
That's amazing. And I saw that you were in Beaverton. There must be something in the water there, because you're right in Nike's backyard. Like that is, it's just like a hotbed of creativity there. What are they doing over there?
There's we have Adidas is here, and like there's actually a lot of entrepreneurial activity in the Beaverton area. Tektronix as a company was one of these companies that's sort of a marquee tech company, and a ton of high tech companies spun out of that in the area. So it's a cool place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. I've been there several times. So when you talk about your title, like manufacturing informed design, how are companies leveraging it now, and how are you optimizing the process?
Yeah, great question here. So first off, we are early in the process. We have not, we don't have a commercial launch just yet. We're working on our capabilities. We have a hypothesis of the value that we're going to create, and we're working with our customers to have them use it and prove that and validate it for us. The general notion is that I think Andrew Anagnos said this a couple of years ago in his keynote at AU. He said, look, we have the opportunity to change the way the AEC industry works by helping the design process, informing them, making design decisions informed by what's actually manufacturable. If we fundamentally flip the script on the way that we work, if we're designing with things that we know that we can make. And it's like that was described what we were doing, but I'd never heard anybody articulate it like that. And so we adopted that as a name for our group. We are fundamentally trying to help our customers productize the things that they make a lot of. They can be all unique, but they follow this similar pattern. So they should be treated as if they are a product, not a one-off, and engineered for each unique instance. And there are things that are many instances of them within the scope of a single project. But when you step back and actually make a lot of these things for many different building projects. So, when you think about getting to scale, I make a lot of these things. Why don't I treat them as if they are a product with allowable variation? And how can I, when I do that, can I tell, how do I share that information with an architect so they are designing with things that are constrained by what I can actually make, rather than, loading a static model and going, that's close enough, and then we'll figure it out downstream. We need to start with models that represent the things that we can make. And then we just kind of shortcut a lot of this downstream process for those things. Is that clear?
No, it's fantastic. And Autodesk kind of, being the go-to for kind of 3D design. And it's like it's going to be a low lift, I think, for companies to adopt this software and technology. The thing that I'm always confused by in the AEC industry is that it's like you have these companies that are really pushing the envelope on the art of the possible, and building in all these deficiencies and using BIM and using a lot of technology. But then there's that faction that it's sort of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so how do you see this type of software? Is it going to help bring some of those companies along and make it easier for them, especially because it's Autodesk, right?
Absolutely. So pardon me, one of the great things about my role and the company that I work for is I get to meet with companies around the planet. And so kind of looking at who's doing neat, new and cool things around the globe. And one of the things that we're starting to see is that many companies are looking to become more vertically integrated. We can't work in a way where the architect is separate and distinct from the general contractor, separate and distinct from the AE firm, and then from the subcontractors, because we're not sharing enough information. We re-engineer everything. It's a manual process. By the time we have enough details and we share it back, we've moved so far on that it's just an untenable workflow. And so verticalization is where these companies are saying that doesn't scale. So let's act as if we are a single organization. We might be separate organizations, but let's agree to share all of this information. Let's agree to a certain set of standards so that we can achieve this scale and move faster. An example of this is, and part of that is just we want to move. We need to deliver more because there's more demand than we could supply. It's not about competing and winning business from our competitors. It's about fulfilling the demand that's out there. So, for instance, in the Netherlands, they have a goal to add 100,000 new residences a year. And if you look at the top 6 general contractors that are working in this way in the country, they can, in combined, create about 3,000 units a year each. It's 18,000 a year. You have a shortfall of 82,000 every single year. And so, they're all looking at this and going, it's not about winning their business. It's about how do I work more effectively so I can take my share of these other projects. So people are recognizing it's in their interest to work this way. And so that's independent of anything that we're doing. Yeah. And then we think that our tools, pardon me, really unlock a lot of that potential. My group is looking at how are we connecting this manufacturing portfolio with the AEC portfolio so that you can leverage both of these tools. And so that streamlines a lot of processes that are wildly disconnected today.
Yeah. So I want to unravel this a little bit more, but we're going to take a moment and hear from our sponsors, and we will be back in just a moment. All right, welcome back. We are with Ryan McMahon, the General Manager of Manufacturing Informed Design at Autodesk, talking about, optimization, both manufacturing, kind of bringing manufacturing, the AEC industry together. I personally do have a lot of focus on, leveraging digital twin. Everyone talks about the metaverse, and, that's really not the thing. I think I look at the metaverse for business as being digital twin. How are you seeing, the goal is obviously to get this sort of end-to-end data sharing mechanism, optimization mechanism, but really transparency between teams and factions. Where does digital twin fall into that, in your perspective?
Yeah, great question. So digital twin and XR/VR are 2 significant areas that Autodesk is investing in because we see a very significant future for those capabilities. So, depending on where you are in the hype cycle, we still believe that there's a ton of business value that customers can get from them. In terms of digital twin in our world, because we have manufacturing and construction, there is digital twin of a product. Show me how I'm operating this turbine factory and for power generation and sensors and all that other stuff. Then there's also the sort of the operating or operator model of a building. Like, give me the as-built digital twin of this. Can I put sensor data in it? Can I use that to understand how the building is optimize how it's being operated, and to do preventative maintenance kinds of things, because you can begin to track all of those kinds of activities. And so those are really the use cases that we think are pretty compelling. But how do you get there and how do you get this model built out is interesting, because we would like to use the artifacts from the design process rather than starting from scratch after we do a handover. And I think that's one of the opportunities that Autodesk thinks that we can provide. Our digital twin group is called the Tandem, and it's on our website. You can go check that out. And they're doing amazing things with incredibly detailed digital twins. So they can go from the site view all the way down to the bolts, nuts, and washers view, all in a browser-based kind of solution. And while as a technical description, that's interesting, what's really impactful is that now you can put this information in a ton of different people's hands so that they have the right information to make better decisions about how they're interacting with this building, how they're designing it, so on and so forth. So I think it's a bigger opportunity than just the, hey, here's how we operate the building.
No, I agree. And I think, again, I probably talk about this too much on the podcast, but we have the technology to actually build create the as-built while we're building the building. And my thesis is that if you trigger a payment with it, you will get people to comply, and you'll get people to walk around with there's like an $80,000 device with LiDAR, right? Beautiful visualization tools that I imagine will, eventually plug into Autodesk software to
What's interesting is that there's this convergence of, if I'm designing a building with a representation of what I know can be made, I have the fully detailed representation, and I can generate a lower level of detail representation, and I can generate everything that I want. And I can put that in a building project. And so now manufacturing form design can help populate out the as built, because you're already designing with these things. You have more complete information early on in the process. Then that all feeds itself into this digital twin as a data model, effectively allowing you to share that much more robustly with a broad number of stakeholders. And that also has the potential to be an environment or a data set that can be leveraged by the XR VR world as well. So now these capabilities can all converge on a really compelling solution that really unlocks the power of all of these things.
Yeah, and then you start to see the sort of end-to-end component, and then as the the XR devices improve, I mean, we're a long way away from that, but as they improve, it's like you've sort of built in the capability to have X-ray vision.
Got it. Absolutely.
We'll get there. We need our superpowers. I'm sure you have a kind of a bird's eye view with all of your experience on a lot of tangential technologies that are impacting the industry. AI, of course, being one of them. Blockchain eventually around smart contracts, and again triggering payments.
Yeah.
XR. Are there things that for you that are really, really compelling and that you'd like to actually just see more of, or you'd like to see more adoption of?
That's a wonderful question, because we get exposed to lots of different tech across the planet, and so I'm interested in all of those things that you mentioned, and I'm trying to, what I'm trying to pay attention to is, okay, you've articulated a use case that creates value, and that makes a lot of sense. Then there's the, how do you make it practical? How do you actually deliver on that? And so I think that there's this gap between, a lot of the things that AI and ML can do is based on having a ton of data that they can learn from, the training sets, and then data that they can act on. And how do you get those training data sets? If we don't do a great job as an industry of having accurate as-builts, so how am I going to feed something that's accurate, that is a data set that you can rely on to generate valid outcomes from? So if I have a building that isn't accurate, and then the AI is learning how to create new assemblies for this building that wasn't accurate, you can't get to an accurate result there. So how do we get there? How do we fill this gap and create enough information that's accessible for those technologies to be able to leverage and do what they do really well? I know it sounds totally self-serving, but I think that's one of the things that manufacturing form design can do, because we are creating little models of these construction assemblies and how they fit together, and they're all computational models. You can drive any configuration of them in the cloud, which means I could say, let me generate 100,000 variations of this particular model that I could then drive through an ML or an AI algorithm to learn from it. But I also directly captured the recipe, so that's also available. But then when I stitch all these things together, I have several different kinds of components coming together: full volumetric, the components therein, how they stack together, how they fit on the site, how they go on the podium, all these other things. Then you begin to be able to create enough data that those systems can then learn from them. There's a ton of other really interesting applications of AI and ML. I just gave one, but those are, I think they're really compelling. But I think that the promise of machine learning and AI is we got a long ways before we'll realize that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the garbage in, garbage out conundrum that,
You got
it's
it.
like we don't have the clean data. So before I let you go, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everyone, which is that if you could project yourself, 20, 25 years into the future, and you could bring with you, any service, any gadget that would just make you happy personally or make your life better in some way, what would
Yeah.
it be and what would it do?
Wow. I don't, it's tough thinking about what I would want going forward that makes my life better. I can tell you the things that make me happy. I'm a maker. I mean, for my intro, I like building things. I would just love like a fully functioning workshop with every tool imaginable in it so I could go make anything. Right now I make furniture, I've made some guitars, I make surfboards, I make a bunch of other stuff. So if I could spend my whole life just tinkering and making and building things, that would make me ecstatic.
That's great. That's great. All right. And so you shall, you're going to have a perfectly fitted workshop.
I'll be on the lookout for that.
Okay. All right. It's coming. It's coming.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
I really enjoyed speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
You too. Thank you, Amy.